How's it going, everybody? My name is Derek Brown Jr., and this will be episode one of the Good Relationships podcast. So, the first thing I wanted to do is introduce myself and let you guys know why I'm doing the Good Relationships podcast and how I even got started on relationships being a main subject of my life. So, I guess I'll start with where I'm currently at in life, and that's me, Derek Brown Jr. I'm currently co-owner of Good Real Estate, Good Property Management, Good Media, and the Good Relationships podcast currently. And how I got into that was basically through relationships. And as an entrepreneur, I took my time to build relationships and kind of nurture those relationships because I knew at a very young age that relationships were something that would be completely important in my life as long as I, don't burn those bridges. And that alone right there is a big key point in life is like you do not want to burn the bridges that you have with people because you never know when you'll have to cross that bridge. And I've learned that lesson so many times in life. I've burned bridges and realized like, wow, I really miss them as a friend or companion. And it's so much harder to have someone back in your life after you burn that bridge. So, some key advice right off the bat is if there's people right now in your life and you're going through things that you you think are tough and you're kind of irritated with them, just kind of let it go and realize that life is too short to have grudges against people, and it's too short to just have the relationships being ruined and to have bad blood with anybody, because the whole point is to just love people and to be loved by people. And so back to why I'm doing the Good Relationships podcast. So growing up, I basically survived with relationships, and I was always a good person. I would say I was always trying to do the right thing, always trying to be helpful to others. But I learned early on in life that people are willing to go to the ends of earth for you if you are willing to do the same for them, and that just makes sense. It's really reciprocal, um, you know. So I had to survive because I was very alone at a early part of my life. I had family and whatnot, but they were working, they were busy doing their own life, and I was the youngest of my family. So I typically spent a lot of time alone. And how I got around to places, how I fed myself the best that I could was relationships. How I entertained myself was through relationships. And how I grew as a person was through relationships. And I really learned a lot from watching people's relationships early on when I was alone. And then when I became active in relationships, I learned a lot about myself. And that's a big thing that I've realized is that I learned so much from just speaking with other people and letting them speak with me, through me, and around me. So I think that relationships is a key part of everyone's life because at all points in life you will be either in a relationship, you'll be seeking a relationship, or getting out of a relationship. And that could be romantic, that could be business, that could be, just a social environment where you're just making friends. It doesn't matter. Relationships are a key part of life. And I think it's important that we understand how to not only be the best we can in relationships, but to kind of master ourselves in order to be the best we can in those relationships. So this will be kind of centered around relationships in general. And, every day I'll be going over a topic. It could be about romantic relationships. It could be about business relationships. But, most of the time you'll get something out of it that you'll definitely relate to. So I appreciate you for tuning in to episode one of the Good Relationships podcast. And I want to go ahead and get into the first topic of the day. And that will be being yourself in relationships. So I kind of just want you to think about that before I go into it and take a moment and think, am I being myself in all of the relationships that I'm in? Okay, good. So I've realized that no matter who we're around, we may show some kind of face. So it may be a different face around your parents, it may be a different face around your significant other, it may be a different face around your business companions. But regardless, we have so many different faces that it may be kind of hard to actually be ourselves. We may actually get lost in who we are sometimes, and that could confuse us when we're seeking genuine relationships. And there's nothing wrong with having different faces because, you just can't be explicit or 100% with all people all the time because it could affect how they view you. And that's sometimes more important than, what you got going on behind the scenes. So it's like if you're in your business relationship and you're speaking with your boss, you won't speak to them the same way you would with your best friend because that wouldn't make sense because that could jeopardize your career if your boss is looking at you in the sense of you being an employee and they want to see only good things from you. On the other end, you may have your friend who you just are free all the time and you're being yourself and you may be more you may be using profanity more, you may be more high energy or more vibrant, you may even laugh a lot more. And it's like those are two different faces and it doesn't make you a fake person, but it just means that one of these things are closer to yourself than the other because when you're not being yourself, you'll feel like you have sort of like a weight on you or you'll be more tired or you'll feel like you feel like it's more tough to be around certain people, and that's because you're not being yourself. So there's some situations where you have to show those faces to protect your own life and to protect your credibility and just to maintain the lifestyle that you have because your the way people view you is just so important. So you want to keep that in mind because your reputation in general is just so important. And if your reputation is ruined, then that alone can create so many problems down the line. It could ruin trust. And if that trust is ruined, then it takes so much time to regain that with people. So you really want to be careful who you show your true self to. And I know that sounds kind of dark in a sense, but it is really valid because there are some people who, if you show your true face to, they may use that to hurt you, and that's not what you want. And I'm sure you've probably experienced that in the past. So just remember that your reputation is so important, and you can actually find that in the book, The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. And maybe it's between the 1 and 10 laws, that's for sure. So it's early on in the book. And you'll just simply find that if your reputation is ruined, then you almost have nothing because people will not see you the same, and that's not what you want. So how do you be yourself? I would say practice being yourself with those that you truly do love. You're most likely yourself when you're around your family members who've seen you grow up, who've seen you in your worst ways, who've seen you joke around, who've seen you go through the silliest things in life, and they don't judge you. And that's the whole point. You want to be around people that don't judge you because it shows them it shows you a true sense of love. So if you're really being yourself, then it's going to look like you having like no weight, no stress, no anxiety when you're around people. You're not having like these negative thoughts go through your brain. You're not having these thoughts of insecurity go through your mind. Like you're not really covering yourself up. You're not covering your mouth when you're eating food. You're not speaking of a low tone when you're with them. You're just kind of being free, and it feels free. And the best thing I can do is to apply this into a romantic relationship. So if you're looking to be in a romantic relationship, then you definitely want to go into that relationship being yourself 100%. And if you can't do that, and if you don't want to do that, then it's probably not the right time for you to be going into a relationship. And that could possibly mean you haven't really figured yourself out or what kind of person you really want to be. But if you don't go into that relationship being 100% yourself, then they're going to find out eventually, and they may not even like who you actually are. So you really want to be with someone who loves you for you. And if they can manage to love you for you, then that's going to give you like the greatest feeling in the world, because that's one of the things that most people in life are truly searching for. And that's like that unconditional love that someone is able to give them for just being them. And that could be you being the goofiest, that could be you being your ugliest in ways and whatnot. But it's really important that you go into these relationships being yourself, because that's the best way that you'll find someone who does love you for you. And then it allows you to truly love them for them, because you accept the fact that they're able to love you for you. And in episode 2 of the Good Relationships podcast, I'll go into that a little bit more. But I kind of just want to give you guys that kind of tip of the day and allow you guys to think about that before I move on and go deeper into being yourself and what that looks like in romantic relationships and even other relationships also. So thank you for tuning in to episode 1 of the Good Relationships podcast. Once again, my name is Derek Brown Jr. And as always, stay blessed, not stressed.